Auston Matthews has broken the silence and revealed the truth behind the Leafs trade deadline plans. We're going to break down exactly what he said, as well as discuss multiple updates ahead of a huge game tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. We also have some lines, as well as a return imminent for the Leafs that changes the outlook and changes everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs, not only in the game tonight, but their trade deadline plans as well. So a ton to go over today. But before we get into it, if you're part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. So make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying the daily content and coverage. But Darius, there's a lot to go over today, and man, oh man, what a crazy day it is. And we know that the Florida Panthers made moves acquiring Seth Jones. The Tampa Bay Lightning made multiple moves acquiring Yanni Gourde and more. And now the Leafs have a huge game tonight. They have to remain in first in the Atlantic Division. They're tied with the Panthers with a game in hand. Auston Matthews has broken the silence on the trade deadline, and we also have a ton of updates ahead of the very late game tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern. But you can see this here from Auston Matthews, a ton of different things. So we're going to start with the full quote. Auston Matthews and the idea of the Leafs adding to the roster at the trade deadline. You look at our division in particular, it's obviously very tight. Management's going to do the best they can. All we can do is trust in them. Of course, you'd love to see a boost. I think with the way that we've played this year and the position we're in right now, we feel really confident and we feel really good about our team and this group. But this time of year, you see teams adding and you want to add as well. But I'm sure the management and staff are doing a lot of thinking right now, doing a lot of homework and stuff like that. I'll just leave it in their hands. And obviously, Matthews on a contract for a while. He's never going to be a part of trade conversations. But as it pertains to Auston Matthews, he wants to win a cup. And that is obviously something that all Leafs fans want and Leafs players want. This is the year to go all in. You're seeing Tampa Bay Lightning go all in. They don't have a first-round pick till 2028, I believe it is now. And they don't have any, they haven't had their first-round picks for years, almost a decade. Whatever it ends up being, a bit less than a decade, half a decade. But now, Auston Matthews is coming out and putting very subtle pressure on the front office. It was a pretty, standard Auston Matthews quote, but he does say you see other teams adding, and that is the biggest thing here. The Leafs need to add.
I think that Auston Matthews, like the rest of us, is going to be very disappointed if a big splash does not happen. And I mean, obviously, at this point, I don't know if it's going to be a big splash like a Mikko Rantanen, but I feel like they have to go out and do something at this point because, like you mentioned off the top, the Florida Panthers just got better acquiring Seth Jones. The Tampa Bay Lightning are pretty scary at this point. They just came off winning 8 in a row. They just added 2 really good pieces to their lineup specifically. And when you look at the Leafs, it's still a very good team, but they haven't plugged in any of the holes that they need to yet, and they haven't made a move. And people are flying off the board at this point. And Jake Evans re-signed with Montreal as well. Like it's really slimming down here very quickly, and the Leafs are going to have to make a move. And I think this is very, subtle pressure that he's putting on Brad Treliving, saying, "Hey, I want to win a Stanley Cup here. I'm going to be quite disappointed if you don't go out and do something that's going to significantly help us this year because the team has earned it. Let's be honest. I know there's a lot of teams in the mix with them. The Panthers are still there, hovering around first. Now the Lightning are in the mix. The Leafs have had a great season. They've been playing really well. They need to plug in a few of these holes at the deadline, and time is running out for Brad Treliving to do that.
Yeah, they have no more time to wait. I mean, technically they have about 40-ish hours at this point, but again, the time is starting to tick. And again, with Auston Matthews come out and say that, I mean, it makes some sense. Management's going to do the best they can. I think all we can do is trust in them. You'd love to see a boost. I mean, Brad Treliving has to see this, and he's not known for making trade deadline moves that are going to be huge. But at this point, there's no other option than to go out. Now, the options that remain, I mean, Braden Shen, Scott Laughton, I'm sure there's some other guys, Luke Cunnin. I mean, none of those particular players, aside from, Shen and maybe Scott Laughton, depending how excited you are for him. I'm a bit less excited about a Scott Laughton trade, although if they do make the deal, I'll buy in. It's interesting. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. Again, we're going to have multiple trade updates and videos coming out for you, but ahead of tonight's game, getting some quotes from Auston Matthews is interesting, but shifting the focus a little bit to tonight's game, it's almost gotten lost in today's craziness, but the Leafs play a game, and it's a very late one to make things even crazier. You had a whole day of news, and you had to wait till 10 p.m. Eastern to watch the Leafs play from the Eastern time zone. You can see this here, the lines at the morning skate. Nyes, Matthews, Marner, Holmberg, Tavares, Nylander, McMahon, Domi, Robertson, Lorentz, Kampf, and Calle Jarnkrok. So Dewar is out, which means Lorentz factors back into that left wing spot in the fourth line, and of course Ryan Reeves stays out for Calle Jarnkrok, who I thought had a pretty good game. But you can see here, Riley, Ekman-Larsson, McCabe, Myers, Benoit, Timmins. But Tanev was back skating today at practice, so a couple different things go on there. I'm assuming he's going to factor out tonight, but his health and his return seems to be imminent.
Yeah, he should be returning soon, which I think is a great sign for the Leafs because at the moment when he got injured, you're thinking this could be long term. Hopefully it's not, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be, but they are dearly missing him. I was at the game the other night against the San Jose Sharks. they are missing him, right? Like they need this player back into the lineup. He makes a world of difference for this team on the back end. But he was skating this morning, which is a great sign, which means he should be returning soon. Not going to play tonight, and what is a very big game. The Leafs need to win tonight to stay first in the Atlantic, and it's again against a very good team in the Vegas Golden Knights. So it's going to be a pretty crazy game. Of course, starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, so it's going to be a little bit crazy in that way, but it should be a good game. But yeah, the Leafs need to win. So the other interesting thing is Lorentz is back in the lineup as well. He's going to be returning after dealing with an injury, which I think is very good news for the bottom six.
Yeah, you now have Lorentz paired with Calle Järnkrok for the first time this year. I mean, second time this year in general that Calle has been back in the lineup, and I thought he played pretty well. And obviously, the top six remains very similar. But another interesting thing to note surrounding this game, there is a good chance, or at least a chance, that this is the last time that we are going to see this group of players together, whether that be, obviously the core four is going to remain intact, whether that be Domi, McMahon is probably going to stay, Holmberg could be on the way out, Connor Dewar, Nick Robertson, like all these guys, depending on what happens. They're not holding anyone out, though, which is also an interesting note, because usually, of course, if they're involved heavily in trade talks, I think most of them are going to happen tomorrow. But yeah, and then the blue line, Raleigh OEL, McKay Myers, Benoit Timmins. A lot of fans are clamoring for that Benoit Timmins pairing to get split up, to get another defenseman, because even with Tanev back, there's been some rumblings about it. And also, it seems that Joseph Woll is going to factor into the net tonight, which is another question, because Stolarz has been the better goalie this season. And as of late, Joseph Woll coming off of a very disappointing game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, albeit they won the game 6-5. That being said, you want to see him play a little bit better, and he's going to have a chance tonight. I was expecting a little bit for them to go with Anthony Stolarz, but they ultimately went with Joseph Woll, and fair enough. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting. It's unfortunate that Tanev wouldn't be out there, because he helps the goaltenders a ton and just the defense in general.
Well, we've seen it the last two games against Pittsburgh and San Jose, right? With Joseph Woll in net. So, and obviously missing Chris Tanev. So we obviously need him back into the lineup. But speaking on Joseph Woll and the goaltending specifically, I mean, Stolarz is probably going to be the guy heading into the playoffs. That's for sure. But they are seriously emulating what the Bruins were doing the last couple of years, where they're flip-flopping. It does not matter. Back and forth, which I think is good for the goaltenders' mentals and also their durability, right? Like their health. So I actually think that it is the right move for the Leafs to be doing this, to continue to do this. Obviously, it doesn't allow any goaltender to really get hot, I guess, to a degree, but I do like this. The Bruins did it for a while. They found success with that, and I think that they should continue to do this until the playoffs, or one guy really takes over the reins. But I think at this point, we can all see that it is going to be Anthony Stolarz, barring anything crazy happening. Of course, anything can change in the NHL in a month's time, but I think it's going to be Stolarz. But again, nice to see Woll get another start, and nice to see them alternating. The Leafs have great options in net this year. Like they've both been really good. Obviously, the last game for Woll, not amazing, but the whole team didn't play well, right? So it should be interesting to see what he has against a really, really good team in Vegas tonight.
Yeah, obviously, Ullmark Swayman, that pair worked out. They ultimately split up, and hopefully Joseph Woll can take command of the night. And it's going to be a huge win, because I can't imagine the fan base's sentiment is going to be fantastic, ourselves included. If they lose tonight, they fall out of the first Atlantic spot. You have Tampa right in their tails, who just made big moves. Pressure increases and mounts even more for Brad Treliving, but pressure is high. Players want to move. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news. Cheers.